Great to see all of you, and it's always nice to be back in the chapel. Lovely space. Tonight, we welcome back our dear friend, Janet Rogalski, who's been actually doing a strong tour of duty up at the Bema the last few weeks. She'll be leading us in the service today. And Fagi Benstein will be providing the Devar Torah. So, a wonderful night tonight. So, let's join together and welcome Shabbat with Shalom Aleichem on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharetz, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Borchem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchoni Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We welcome the Sabbath now with the kindling of the lights. I'd like to invite Ricky and Stan Rudy to join us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. You'll find that on page 120 and 121.
So, speak loud.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who follows us with mitzvot, commanding us to light the lights of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you. We continue now with the Chatzi Kaddish, which you will find on page 144.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, bi'alma divorach yeduteh v'hamlich machuteh, b'chayechonu v'reh Israel. Bagala, bagala, ubizman karib, v'himeru, amen. Yesh b'elav ha'mevorach, le'alam na'alme ha'maya, yitzbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitmah, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitatar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemer kodeshah b'richu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushmechata v'nechemata, damiran v'alma, v'imeru, amen.
Please rise for the call to worship, page 146.
Baruch hu et Adonai, hamevorach. Baruch Adonai, hamevorach, le'olam va'ed.
We read together on the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and seasons glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim.
Avat olam, Bet Yisrael, Nege
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We read together. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. We read responsively on page 157. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice, Israel.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני kamocha nedar bakodesh norati lot osefele malchut karau anecha bokeyam livne Moshe malchut karau anecha bokeyam livne Moshe u'Miriam zazali anu v'ameru Adonai imloch le'olam le'olam va'ed mi kamocha b'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh norati lot osefele ונאמר כי פד אדוני את יעקב וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל.
We read together at the top of page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapurei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, va'al Yerushalayim.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש וביום השביעי שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Please rise for the tefillah on page 164.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agiti hilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומשיח ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם והעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. בי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדור מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. We continue reading responsively on page 173. Disturb us, Adonai, ruffle us from our complacency. Make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans.
Shock us, Adonai. Deny to us the false Shabbat, which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred.
Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears.
Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality.
Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat.
תפילתם באהבה תקבל ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל ישראל המך אל קרוב לכל קורא בפינה עבדיך וקננו שפוך רוחך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים ברוך
We read together on page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us, so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all of these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha ne'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim leolam ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom hashalom. בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
We read together, "Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. Make contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael bashalom." At this point in our service, we will think of those in our congregation, in our community, indeed in the world, who are in need of healing. We know there are many. We have names that we'd like to add: Eloise Rapino, Joel Leviton, and Sharon Yalen. If you have names that you would like to add, please do so now.
Dave Saltzman, Mackenzie Pigman.
We join together now in singing our prayer for healing, the Misha Berach, which you can find in the middle of page 371.
Source of strength to bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalom, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
We pause now for some silent meditation.
Say shalom b'miromam. Oyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael vehimeru. Amen.
It gives me great joy to invite Viggy Benstein to give the Devar Torah.
Shabbat Shalom, Temple family. First and foremost, Andy and Janet, to share this holy space with you is my blessing and my joy. Okay, so there is an injunction in the Talmud that says you must give credit where credit is due. It's a very serious injunction. Into my drush, I am going to be introducing to you a brilliant young Reform rabbi on the West Coast who has written commentary on this parsha that is nothing short of brilliant. And it begs to be shared, and I will have the opportunity of sharing her remarks with you. Welcome to Parshat Shoftim, Judges, the last of the speeches of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses, of instruction to Am Yisrael, them and us, the people of Israel before his death. For the last several Parshiot Torah portions, Moses has been passionate, determined about his instructions. Rules, regulations, blessings, curses. Why? Why? Because he wanted to make sure that before he died, and the people go into the land, that they lead ethical and moral lives, how they treat each other, their interpersonal relationships, and their relationship with God. This week's Parsha is one of my favorites, and it opens with, and it's going to sound very familiar, with the very famous injunction, Tzedek, tzedek tirzdaf, justice you shall pursue. Judges, Deuteronomy 16:18-19. This is one of the most powerful verses in all of Jewish text. This parsha is about how do we choose judges, how do we choose magistrates, how do we choose leaders, what characteristics and morals and values must they have. However, I'm compelled to put this last injunction into context. And I want you to think about this as I go, because it blows my mind. Moses is born in the 13th century, 1,592 years before the Common Era. Born in Egypt during the enslavement, in order to save his life, his mother Yocheved and older sister Miriam decide to send him down the aisle. Batya, the Pharaoh's daughter, the princess, saves him, raises him as her own. She is the only mother that Moshe would ever know. He becomes the prince of Egypt, raised with every royal privilege and overindulgence. Having slain an Egyptian because of his brutality to the Jewish slaves, he runs for his life and didn't have time to say goodbye to his mother or anybody else for that matter. He becomes a shepherd, marries Zipporah, a Cushite woman, and they have 2 sons. His life he is content, he is happy. One day while tending his sheep, a bush became on fire and it wouldn't extinguish. That's weird. That's strange. And then a voice out of nowhere says, Moshe, take off your shoes. You are standing on holy ground. I mean, like, really? Take off my shoes? I mean, I can only wonder what Moshe was thinking about it. And the text doesn't even say, please take off your shoes. It's take off your shoes, okay. Moses did not sign up for this. He didn't raise his hand. He didn't say, Hineni, I'm here, Anipo, I'm here. He did not volunteer for this position. He argues with God. I will have no credibility with the Pharaoh or the Jewish people. He was right. It was God that had the credibility and that would lead through Moses the people from slavery to freedom. Immediately out of Egypt, the people of Israel are relentlessly miserable. They wanted to return. At least then they knew what to expect. They were constant complainers, fetching their way throughout the entire desert. Moses has to put up with uprisings, insurrections against him, not to mention the idol of worshiping, not to mention worshiping idols, especially golden calf. Now here he is, teaching our people, teaching Am Yisrael, us, then and today, ethics, morals, standards, how to become a just people. Tzedek, you will pursue. At this time, I turn to the Dvar written by Rabbi Jacqueline Madismussen, a brilliant, very young Reform rabbi on this Parshat Shoftim. Her words are brilliant. It is my great honor to refer to her, and by the way, I'm in total compliance with the Talmud. I don't want to get in trouble with the Torah, with the Talmud, especially this time of year when you're supposed to be doing this. We in the Reform movement repeat this phrase over and over again. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. It is our battle cry whenever we go out to the world and do social justice. It is part of the bedrock of our senses, of our purposes, and responsibility as Jews. This verse is given to us in the context of laws concerning the justice system. We are told, remember when this was written, we are told that we must appoint magistrates to govern fairly, show no partiality, and refuse bribes. We are to pursue justice when we establish ourselves in the new land and in our society, including today. But we also have to realize that due to the way the command is structured, justice is always something we will pursue and not necessarily something that is possible to achieve. Our understanding of justice changes over time. It is not a fixed entity. The portion itself is a perfect example, mixed in with the laws concerning fairness and needing multiple witnesses to convict someone with a crime. And we have the details of what some of those crimes were. Again, remember when this was written. It blows my mind. If there is found among you in one of the settlements that the eternal God is giving you, a person who has affronted the eternal God and transgressed God's covenant, turning to worship of other gods and bowing down to them, you shall make a formal inquiry. It is true, the fact is established that an abhorrent thing was perpetrated in Israel. You shall take the person who did that wicked thing out to the public space, and you shall stone them to death. Deuteronomy 17:2-5. Worshiping other gods was a crime considered evil enough to warrant the death penalty in the times of when Deuteronomy was written. In our context, this is no longer something we consider a matter of justice. Worshiping something other than God is not a capital punishment. Over the course of time, we've learned that. We've weighed the significance of our actions and other crimes, and we constantly look to take those values as they evolve today. For instance, there is a time when an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth was considered justice. That's what was justice in those days. This is a biblical law. When we look at the rabbinical literature, people begin to argue that we should not be taking someone's eye, even if they cause the destruction of someone else's. Rather, there should be a monetary compensation for the loss of an eye by the hand of another. Ultimately, you cannot attain justice by taking my eye because I destroyed yours. You did nothing to lose your eye, while the loss of my eye was a punishment for taking yours. You don't gain anything through the loss of my eye, but I compensate you. Then at least there is some gain to your end. As time passes, we learn more and more about what justice could look like. Thus, the system we set to support our new understanding in insights that reflect change. Grounded in our values of compassion and kindness, we must pursue what we understand justice to be. We also find that once we create new laws based on changing situations, there are things we never considered. How would we? We can make it illegal, for instance, to hire someone based on their gender, race, or disability. Once we draw that line in the justice sand, however, we realize that there are other major factors that need to be considered. Things like implicit bias still affect the way we do things, but we might not have realized the implications of that bias ever. We learn from positive steps and take toward justice, because until we take those steps, it is hard to know what other factors are getting. There is no state of perfect justice, because we're always learning new things, seeing different scenarios, and the world circumstances are always changing. We may not be able to establish a perfectly just society. Instead, we must establish ourselves as a society that pursues justice and adjust as necessary, and continues to be flexible in situations as the world around us changes. If we think that we have perfect justice, then it's time to set our ideals even higher. Whatever we imagine will be limited by our own experience as human beings, even with the collective knowledge of the generation past. May we as a society continue to strive toward justice by reinforcing the pursuit of justice. Shabbat Shalom.
So I get to be your cheerful board representative as well tonight with announcements. Flowers at the Bema this evening are in loving memory of John Redlick, father and grandfather from Arlene and John Levine and family. Next Friday, September 9th at 6 p.m., Please join us for Camp Shabbat service with Cantor Jen Rohr and all the students who attended camp this past summer. And on Saturday, September 10th at 10:30 a.m., we'll have a musical minyan led by Cantor Jen. Shabbat Shalom.
Please rise for the concluding prayers.
All right. Oop, hot mic.
You may be seated. We read together on page 589. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the world of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. We continue on page 593. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance and our life burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen, yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. At this sacred moment of our Sabbath worship, we think lovingly of Kyle Andrew Schwartz and Stephen J. Albert, taken from us in recent weeks. We name too at this time those whose yahrzeits, the anniversary of whose passing occurs, is on this Shabbat we recall Joseph Applebaum, Sidney Barron, Beverly Baumol, Julie A. Kane, Jenny Davis, Marie Cohn Dettelbach, Edward Dolan, Dr. Raymond Fetterman, Emmanuel Fischler, Harry Fishman, Edith Franklin, Bertie O. Freund, Emmanuel Friedlander, Mally Dublon Gamio, George Habergritz, L. Robert Herman, William E. Himmelhoek, Retha L. Irvin, Harold Jaffe, Bernice Kahn, Charlotte Kalnitz, Judy Mainwald, Viola Miller, Jenny Mittenthal, Nathan D. Osterman, John Redlich, Joan Reese, Alexander Joseph Reiner, Samuel M. Rogalski, Mervyn Russell, Emil Schragenheim, Dora Schwartz, Abe Jewel Shore, Bernice K. Siegel, Morris B. Singer, Joseph B. Smith, Molly Block Solomon, Joanne Schwartzberg, and Morris Thal. We rise now to sanctify the name of God with the words of the Kaddish found in the books on page 598.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך ידותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי יכון ובימי יכון, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי דקדושה ברכו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמרן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיים וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
May the source of peace send peace to all who are bereaved, here and everywhere, as together we say, Amen.
Amen.
We remain standing for our final hymn, Ein Kelohenu, which you will find on page 626. Shabbat
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Please join us for Kiddush and Motzi in the hallway.